TGR Obelix, Sparta, Germanator, Seleucids. Round of 16. I must say I was very surprised at Germanator's setup when I first looked at his Seleucid build for this game. I think pikes need a very specific set of circumstances to go in their favor for them to be utilized effectively as a main line, and I just think that his build was very interesting. And what I mean by that is I feel like pikes certainly need to have the skirmish advantage on their side to be utilized effectively as a core. If they're your only infantry unit, you absolutely need to have some very good archer or skirmishing component to your build to win a fight, because you need to have your opponent run at you basically need to have your opponent run at you and make mistakes as they hastily try to attack you. And one way to do that, the best way to do that, is to have a strong skirmish advantage. So he does have a skirmish advantage in this battle. He has 4 Syrian heavy archers, and Obelix has 3 mercenary Cretan archers. So he's going to be able to win a skirmish fight here. He has cavalry. He has 3 light cav, 2 Medean cavalry, a Hellenic cataphract, and a chariot, which I think was a very interesting bring in this battle, because chariots are very hit or miss. They can either just completely destroy your opponent and cause massive amounts of casualties, massive mass routes, or they can do pretty much nothing. And against Sparta, I think it's a risky build. I think it's a risky thing to do, bringing chariots, because all these Spartan hoplites with their 80 armor, the 95 armor Royal Spartans, they all have a bonus versus large. So utilizing a chariot effectively versus that many heavy spears is very difficult. So it certainly gives him the killing power he needs. I think one thing that pikemen lack in general is a lot of killing power, especially if your opponent doesn't run directly onto the front of your pikes, which a smart opponent's not going to do. So I think the chariots give him that killing power, but it's very risky. It's over 1,000 talents invested in something that could very easily do no damage to a Spartan opponent. At the start of this battle, it looks like Obelix is just going to send some Tarentine cavalry out onto the flanks, just do a little bit of harassing, see if he can do any damage over here, make his opponent make a couple mistakes. Going to lose a little bit of HP from these heavy Syrian archers, but not going to do too much damage or lose too much here. And one thing that Jab's Cav is really good against is actually cataphracts. You can kind of harass cataphracts down, maybe not get a ton of kills on them. In fact, you won't get a ton of kills on them, but the javelins will do damage over time, reduce that HP, and make it a lot easier for the Spartan hoplites or some of your other units to do some damage or kill the Hellenic cataphracts outright. So a lot of this cavalry from Germanator just sitting here on the flank. Bringing this much cavalry against Sparta is a hard thing, man. It's really hard, because everything Sparta is going to be bringing is heavy spears. Hammer and anvils aren't going to be super effective versus Sparta. Of course, they still do damage. They're still important to do against Sparta to cause chain routes. But it's still difficult. You're not going to be killing a ton of guys on the charges, and if you hit them from the front or make a mistake and get caught up in a heavy spear unit with 15 bonus versus cav, you're going to be losing a lot of cavalry really quickly. So, going to have to be very cautious here. One thing that I feel like the Seleucid build is lacking a little bit is infantry to back up the pikes. And I think this is really important when you bring pikes, that they shouldn't really be your main line on this patch. If we went back to like foot companions on the first couple patches of the game, yeah, they were absolute beasts. Like, they responded to orders, they killed everything from the front so quickly. That's not the case with pikes anymore. You need infantry to protect the flanks of your pikes, and you need to make sure that you don't get really spread out. You have to present a long, solid line to your opponent. And if you don't do that, if you let yourself kind of get caught out and kind of chase off different units and kind of get spread out all over the field, it's very easy to let your pikes get flanked. And that's definitely an issue for pike units, is that they can't defend their flanks themselves because they aren't mobile. So having other infantry units here, I think, would have been beneficial to the Seleucids, just to maybe like 1 or 2 thorax swords on the flanks, just to protect the pikes from the sides. Make sure that the Spartan hoplites don't get around. Not sure if these Spartan hoplites are going to make an impact like Obelisk wants them to, but it's certainly a risk that you take bringing only pike units as your main core. So in a skirmish fight, Obelix is definitely going to have a hard time here as Sparta. He has 3 mercenary Cretan archers, which are of course great skirmish units, but Germanator has 4 Syrian heavy archers, so he should win a skirmish fight here, and Obelix is actually going to make a mistake here. One thing he's going to do, he's going to bring his Cretans up a little bit too far. As you can see, they're shooting at the Syrian heavy archer that was furthest away. And that's fine, except it's going to leave these Korean archers in the cone of fire for longer than they normally would have. So even if he pulled them back right now, this unit is going to actually be able to shoot at them for longer because they had to move up to shoot at the Syrian heavy archer on the other flank. So they're in the cone of fire too long, and that's going to hurt Obelix a little bit here. And yeah, these Syrian heavy archers are definitely doing some good damage here. I'd say he's pretty clearly winning the skirmish fight at this point. And this Korean archer is just getting absolutely shredded at this point. Down to 23 men, bunch of headshots, and pretty soon here these two Korean archers are going to be taken pretty much out of the fight completely. So I think Obelix might have spent a little bit too much time in a skirmish fight that he couldn't win. And yeah, he's going to lose 2 of his tools here. 23 archers isn't going to do anything. 29 archers isn't going to do anything. They're pretty much effectively out of the fight at this point. And actually one of them is going to rout from the field. So yeah, that's a bit of an issue. The one thing that Obelix did do well in that fight though was he brought a cavalry unit up and chased off the skirmishers. I think this is really important. I don't see a lot of people do that. In skirmish fights, it's very important to use cavalry to chase off skirmishers, prevent them from shooting while you give your archers more time to shoot. But as we see in the background there, another Korean archer just routed, so he actually has 1 left. And that's a problem for Obelix at this point. Like, he needs to have those tools to skirmish down the pikes, and I think he probably shouldn't have wasted those like he did. But the Parayoki spears are going to come up here, do a little bit of jav throwing, and actually rout one of these heavy archers off the field. And this is going to be interesting here, actually, because there's some skirmishing over here on the flank. I'm not sure why Germanator decided to bring those light cavalry up. He might have been microing elsewhere, but one big mistake he's going to make is I believe these heavy archers were targeting the Cretans, and they routed from the field, and Germanator didn't realize it, and he's actually going to let them get really far away from the pikes and not catch it for a while here. And he's going to leave them in the melee fight and maybe try to pull out, but I don't think he succeeds in doing so. He's going to pull one away and leave the other in melee combat. And actually going to end up losing a lot of skirmishers here. So he lost 20 men off the charge from that citizen cav, and he left this one in melee as well. And at the start, the Syrian heavy archers with their armor are going to be able to survive for a little bit, but as time wears on, the longer they're in this fight, they're going to lose even more and more men. And you can see they're dropping precipitously now. And that's a problem. I mean, I feel like Seleucids absolutely needs these skirmishers to make the hoplites take a hasty engagement, and if he loses them all here, or loses a bunch of them, he's not going to be able to do enough damage to the hoplites for it to really matter. So that was a micro mistake there that I think hurt him a lot. He's going to lose half of his archer contingent just to 1 citizen cav, just from a little bit of a micro mistake there. So on the flanks here, some cavalry's getting caught up with the Parayoki spears. Again, I think he might have mismicroed and let the cavalry get caught out by the spears, and these spears are quick. They're not quite like Thoreo spears, but they move very quickly. And all across the line here, he's lost quite a bit of his cavalry as well. He did manage to take out this Parayoki spear, which is good. Chasing that out the field. But now I think at this moment, I think he's getting too spread out. With a pike build, I don't think this is the right move. Pikes are very good when they're in a long line that your opponent can't flank, and they're all together. And even then, I think that they still have they have a lot of limits. Like, they're a very limited unit. I don't particularly like pikes at all on this patch. But what he's doing now, kind of spreading out, letting this one get way far ahead of the rest of the line, I think this is going to be a problem for him, because protecting this one unit, preventing archers and hoplites from flanking around is going to be really difficult, because they're by themselves. They're completely isolated. The Syrian heavy archer is going to get caught up by a spear here. And actually over on this flank is a pretty important engagement. So the Hellenic cataphracts are going to charge into the hoplites. I actually like that move from him. A lot of people wouldn't do this. And cataphracts are absolutely capable of killing hoplite units. What you have to do, though, is charge and pull back out. And if they are braced, you cannot charge. That hoplite was not braced. The Spartan hoplite was actually running forward. And so when it got charged, it actually took a ridiculous amount of casualties, probably 30 men off the charge. which was really good. I think Germanator might have let the Hellenic Cataphract stay in there a little bit too long, but I think he wanted the trampled bonus to continue going, and he did use trample there. If you don't have a strategist general with the second wind ability, I don't really recommend using trample, because it'll make them exhausted. As you can see here, this Cataphract is now moving super slow, and it's in the red in terms of exhaustion and can't run away from the citizen cavalry at all. So you have to be very careful. Okay, he used the second wind here, and so they're back to good fatigue, which was a good move from him. It's very important that they're back to fresh, because you lose so much killing power with a unit when they're exhausted. And so they're back, and they should be able to kill that citizen cav pretty easily. Although they didn't get a charge on them, so that's kind of an issue. Over here, he engaged his chariots from the front into a hoplite unit, and then hit it in the back with this light cavalry, and I guess the Syrian heavy archers in melee as well. He lost half of his chariot to the front of that hoplite unit. This is a really big deal, because the chariots are very important in this battle to kill things, and when they lose, they only have 74 kills on like Perioki spears and one hoplite unit. Like, they have not made a big impact on this battle at all yet, and they just lost half the unit. He's going to try to engage this other Spartan hoplite unit, and I mean, it's just difficult here. Like, it's a heavy spear, 80 armor. HP's already down. They're wavering. Like, that unit's gone. That's a lot of talents and not a lot of game impact there. So they've routed from the field. They're not coming back. That was a big deal. That was a big deal right there. So fight is very spread out. Like, it was very interesting watching this, how they kind of spread out their armies, and there's just combat going on everywhere. Perioki spears over on the flanks and some citizen cavalry managed to clear up that flank. And these pike units over here, like, there is nothing that makes Obelix want to engage this pike unit. Like, he doesn't have to fight it at all. He can just run around it. And one thing that I've always found when fighting against pikes is that you basically just kill all your opponent's other tools and then deal with the pikes. And I think Germanator so far has made that a little bit too easy for Obelix. By spreading out all over the field, allowing his pikes to get surrounded, kind of get isolated, I think that's made it easier than it should have been to deal with his pike line, and to deal with every other tool. If you kind of box up or present a single solid line to your opponent, it becomes much harder to get your cavalry around the flank and into the skirmishers or the cavalry or the other units for the Seleucids. But he kind of spread out all over the field, and so far, there have been some micro mistakes on both sides, but I think the biggest ones have been on Germanator's side so far, which is not to disparage him in any way. I would be pretty lost microing units all over the field like this. I just don't think it's the strength of the pikes to be this spread out. I think you want them to be a little bit more compact and in a one solid line. Battle's not over yet, though. He does have some pikes over here dealing with the Royal Spartans. Obelix was very smart to notice that this Royal Spartan had engaged the pike from the front, so he pulls out, and I believe he's going to try to get around to the flank a little bit more. And Germanator's doing a good job here of turning the pike as well, make sure that they're always facing the hoplite from the front. And yeah, this is kind of the thing I've come to expect from pikes. They're actually doing okay right here. They're getting some kills, but just the formation is very strange, and they don't always face the way you want them to. But doing a decent job at the moment. General just routed for the Seleucids, and that's going to be a big issue because he's starting to lose a lot of units here. And there's some wavering from the light cavalry engaged with these hoplites. Royal Spartans in general, even from the front, I believe are going to beat pikes. And they're getting flanking charges and stuff, and a lot of these pikes aren't actually using them, they're just using their swords because the Spartans got in from the side. So this engagement over here is not going very well. And it looks like, yeah, with these Royal Spartans over here, that should just be no problem at all to wrap up. And the balance bar is shifting very precipitously in Obelix and Sparta's favor. So this is looking very grim for Germanator at the moment. In fact, at this point, I mean, I could try to hype it up as much as I wanted, but there's really no hope of Germanator coming back from this one. There's simply too many tools left on the field for Sparta. He has a bunch of full-strength Royal Spartans. His cavalry is pretty much dead, but he doesn't need cavalry to kill the pikes. And yeah, we look at this Royal Spartan attacking the pikes from the front. Not even really a big deal if you get them into hoplite formation. And then yeah, a charge from the citizen cavalry from the rear should send that pike into red morale and rounding off the field soon. So just a couple of units left on the field now. This pike unit looks like it's not even gonna, or it is running with the pikes up. Gonna be engaging soon here. And a lot of units actually for Obelix just kind of standing around. I'm not sure why, to be honest. I don't think this is a replay corruption. I'd love to know if Obelix watches this replay, what the deal is with all these units, if he just wasn't microing them because he didn't feel like he needed to, or just didn't see them. Here they are, they're finally under control now. I don't think that's replay corruption. I think that was either just a micro or a conscious decision to not move them, but either way, it looks like this pike line is finally going to rout, and we're just going to watch this Royal Spartan charge here at the end. See if they actually get into melee combat. And of course the Royal Spartans at this point in the game are one of the premier heavy infantry units in the game. Super versatile, super strong. There'll be a lot of sword infantry from the front. Very good unit. I don't expect to see too much Sparta in this tournament, but very nice to see them here because I think they are kind of underrepresented, and they are a very good faction if used appropriately. And I think that Obelix, with some micro mistakes, of course, we're going to be seeing those everywhere because that happens, and it's very easy to point them out in a replay. It's not so easy to point them out when you're actually playing. But I think he played that pretty well. I think what really caused what was really the turning point in this game was just the army composition stage from the beginning. I don't like pikes on this patch, and I know that some people do, and they can be utilized effectively, but at least the way that Germanator used them in terms of kind of chasing after units and letting them kind of get isolated, I think that was definitely a mistake from Germanator. Pikes by themselves are easily surrounded, easily cut apart. They have to have support. And so if you don't have a support from a sword unit or a heavy spear protecting the flank, they get isolated, they die. And I think that's what we saw here. And hoplites in general are very good versus pike units. They have high armor, they have high shield values, they can tank pikemen for a while, and it's not a big deal if you accidentally charge onto the front of a pike with a hoplite unit if you notice it quickly, because that high armor will keep them alive. You pull them out, get them around the flank, and I think Obelix did a good job in this battle doing that. The chariots didn't make the impact that Germanator wanted them to. Understandable. It's really hard. It's really risky. I like the move from him. I really do. I think it was a good move from him because he needed more killing power in his army. They just didn't make the impact that he wanted them to. And I think the best way to win this battle for Germanator was to win the skirmish fight, which he did. Not throw away his heavy archers, which I think he kind of did there with against the citizen cavalry. But keep all his archers together near the pikes. Keep shooting at your opponent. Make him run at you. And then once your opponent engages your front line of pikes, you bring the chariots, you bring the Hellenic Cataphractor around the flank, try to get some hammering animals off. I think that could have been a way to win this battle. It didn't happen though. And overall I thought it was a very interesting battle. Very spread out. A lot of micro involved. I think both players could have done a better job, but they certainly, with what they were working with, it was difficult. I mean, it was a difficult battle, and I think both made some really good moves. I think Germanator's skirmishing was great. Until he lost those heavy archers. He did a really good job killing those Cretans and not losing too much there. But yeah, in general, I just think that some of his more expensive units didn't make the impact that he wanted. 115 kills on the Hellenic Cataphracts. You want to see more on that on your general unit, I think. But overall, really good battle. I want to say thank you to both players. Good luck to Obelix in the round of 8. And Germanator, I'm sorry you are now eliminated. I hope you had fun in the round of 32 and the round of 16. But I hope you guys enjoyed the battle, and I'll talk to you all later. Leave your thoughts on the battle below, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think. See you guys later.